This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Hey, it is Long Shots, golf betting podcast here on the VSiN Podcast Network. Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelley Bydlon coming to you for the Mexico Open, which we have no fewer than 17 outrights in our account. You want to stick around and see if there's anything you want to throw into yours. I can tell you right now, if any of mine hit, it's going to be a good day because I got a bunch of long-ass shots in this one. So it's going to be a good day for us. Wes starts out the season incredibly hot, 3 outrights in a row. Kelley, we finally get home. We had the outright second with Lowry, so that stung a little bit. But that's, again, he just got beat in that tournament. And so here we are. We finally get home with Ludwig, and I'm glad Ludwig got it done because I didn't want to have to hate him for the rest of my life. He is so incredibly handsome, and the swing is as beautiful as his face and his skin. And so I want to love watching him play golf. So I'm glad that he decided on the back nine to put things together and go ahead and get that done there on the 72nd hole.
Yeah, it was. That was nice to get home. It was the golf season was getting long and rough. There's no doubt about that. Real quick, it was getting long and rough already. We're only in the first couple weeks of February. Needed to get on the board with one. That was good. I'm glad we all talked about it last week. We thought pricing was a little silly with what we were seeing out there, with where we thought Ludwig would be. I think we are not going to see prices like that on him really ever again going forward.
We said we thought he had to have been over his tummy ache, so like it had been 2 weeks. You can't have a 3-week tummy ache, so like that was good.
He was looking good, and I'm with you. I think Ludwig's a guy that, look, even at shorter prices, I have a feeling will have my attention for bets several times this year at some bigger tournaments. So it was great to see him go out there in a big-time field and get a big-time win.
No, nice job by you guys. Look, I'm kicking myself, and I've been doing it all weekend. Like, why didn't I just bet this guy when I said on the pod last week he was the guy that scared me the most of the guys I didn't play, and he worried me more than Rory or Scotty Scheffler even, and who both were in contention. At least Scotty stayed in contention throughout, ended up finishing T3, but I regret it. It's one you will always have a couple of those tournaments every year where you kick yourself like, why didn't I bet this guy? I knew that this guy was right, and I didn't do it. So Ludwig gets a win, holds off a very hard-charging Maverick McNeely, who shot 8 under 64, did not birdie the par 5 18th, and that ended up being his undoing, so he finishes 1 out of the pace. Patrick Rogers, T3 with Scotty Scheffler. Rogers, my Indiana guy, still looking for that first win. Top 5 finished out with Cantlay, Finau, Fleetwood, and McCarthy.
Kelley, you said probably not going to get that on Ludwig ever again. If you go into the long futures markets, if you look at the Masters odds at DraftKings, he is 16-1. If you go into the PGA Championship, he is also 16-1 there. So getting the 25, 26, 27, whatever you got out there on him whenever we did the pod, just a gift almost to us there. And there's a real chance we're not speaking in hyperbole here. Like, you might never see a 2 in front of his name ever again.
Yep.
Like, I think there's a decent chance that it's going to be something, in the teens for Ludwig pretty much moving forward.
I was actually texted right when the tournament was about to reach its conclusion
22-1 for the players.
Yeah, I was texted by a former colleague of ours, actually, at VSiN, to say, hey, should I just bet Ludwig now for the Masters? I said, yeah, just go ahead and grab it now because it's going to drop because he's going to win. It was not a conclusion he was going to win this tournament, but he was in certainly very good shape. All he had to do was birdie the 18th going in. So texted me like right when he was finishing 17, and I said, yeah, go ahead and bet it now. Yeah. I think that's probably the way to go to at least have something on him.
Now, I will say this because, full transparency with everything. The odds got so juicy. I did hedge away about $500 of the winnings there on Ludwig because it was, listen, while he was definitely the favorite to birdie, I mean, look, we've seen him 3-putt, have bad 3-putts. We've seen whatever. So, it got up to where, Mav was. There was a 7-1, and there was an 8-1, and then there was a 9.5-1, in which I was just kind of like, okay, $100, because at that point to me, I was going to win enough off of Ludwig either winning or to give a little bit of that back to basically get the same amount of winnings I would have gotten, had Ludwig won. was okay for me. And so, full disclosure, I didn't get the full payout here with that one because I did think that there was at least it was a head-to-head at that point, and I was getting 7, 8, 9.5 to 1 on the dude that he was potentially going to go into a playoff with. And so it was worth it to me. Kelley is still a nice, profitable tournament. The Tommy Fleetwood top 20 gets home. Both head-to-heads win as well. So it's good to get a really good one in the books.
Yeah, Tommy was good. Top Englishman he hit for me on that one as well. Matt taking the smarter, more practical approach, I think, when we talk about hedging, and if you're betting these all season long like we are, that's probably the better one. I was already in such a mood with this golf season. I was like, F that. I ain't doing – he's either winning this. I'm going to be pissed if this goes into playoff holes, and I really got to hedge then. That was the only time I was really waiting for it. I was like that's where I was really concerned about him getting home in 2 putts there. And he did. He did. Credit to him on 18. Got home in 2 putts, man. That was very nice. Saved me a lot of money, that's for sure. There is that playoff hedge. I believe you almost have to do it every time, but how much money you might just be throwing away doing it.
I had to do it at the Sony with Nick Taylor. I put some on Echeverria. I was like, well, I've got to because I feel like he maybe should be the guy that wins this tournament. Because Taylor got very lucky on 18 at Waialae, chip it in from 55 feet for an eagle. So, you do kind of have to a little bit, unless it's just, total no-name guy against, one of the biggest stars. Because the no-name guy, you're like, okay, I don't know if he's ready for this. But when they're pretty even like that, you have to do it in a playoff.
Yeah, and for me, he's starting to birdie the hole, right? And I'm getting 7 to 1, and then after he hits the fairway, it goes to 8 to 1, and then he's on the green, and it's 9.5 to 1, but he's got a 700-foot putt, and so it's just it's not a given that he's going to 2-putt from a million feet away, and so. It was fine for me I felt okay with it,
Surprised the price jumped out that far after his tee shot. I get it once he hit the green, because he was set up. I mean, that was looking like it was going to be tough to get home at 2, but he was set up pretty well off the tee.
By the way, he hit, this is just for the golfers out there. He pulls 7-wood and hits the 7-wood 265.
It's crazy.
They're like, man, he's going to have to clear the water. Well, he's going to need to get 220, with a 7-wood. He flies it by 40 freaking yards. He hit a 7-wood 265. I mean, it's insanity. I mean, and he doesn't even look like he's swinging hard. It's just this nice smooth little deal, and then just launches a 7-wood 265. It's just, unbelievable with Ludwig, but. Again, imagine we'll be talking about him winning a bunch of tournaments here shortly. West Coast swing done. We are on to Mexico, and Wes, we are on to a field that is maybe the weakest we will see all year long, outside of one of the kind of alternate tournaments that we get where it falls on the schedule with everyone going over to Florida with the TGL. I might also add, the TGL getting these guys to go and play as well. It was a very, very bad timing for this tournament overall. And so with that, we only have a couple of guys maybe that only if you don't bet golf on a normal basis, there's probably 10, 12 guys in this field that you have any sort of really, knowledge of and what they do out there on the tour. But hey, look, maybe this presents an opportunity for us to get somebody with a long number next to their name home.
Yeah, this is the buffer event between the West Coast and then the Florida swing. The Cognizant, the old Honda down in Palm Beach, starts next week. They're in the Sunshine State. But, yeah, look, a downfield, you're getting a lot of guys that maybe have PGA Tour status that can't get in a lot of these events. They certainly can't get in the signature events. And then there's priority. So you get a lot of guys that maybe are recent Korn Ferry graduates or guys that are kind of – in that 70 to 100 in the FedEx Cup that don't qualify for a signature event. So, you got a couple names in here, but this is pretty wide open. Ignore the history, though, because you had 2 real chalky winners. John Rahm won it at 5 to 1 in 2022, Finau 8 to 1 in 2023, and then Jake Knapp won it at 50 to 1. So I tend to think we're looking middle price guys winning this event with no, I think, real consensus favorite.
When we look at the course here, it is a resort course, and so as we know, typical resort courses play a little bit easier. That said, this one not what we see a ton of times. There is a bunch of water, so they will have to deal with all of that whenever we are kind of breaking this course down. But what were some of the stuff that really stood out to you?
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I mean, they're going to score low here. You know, you're going to score high teens, maybe 20 under, but it's not as easy of a course as some of these other places. Like, this is not going to be like the American Express where you're approaching 30 under. So the course does, even though it's long and the fairways are wide, you know, and you can pretty much grip it and rip it off the tee, there is a lot of water. It's not the easiest, too, because it is Paspalum on the surface. So the thing about Paspalum is you don't get as much run out like on the fairways that you would, you know, if it's firm and fast with Bermuda or Ben or something like that. So a lot of the times the balls kind of stop. Like, they don't get a lot of roll and a lot of spin on the green because Paspalum is really sticky. And you don't see that except on these, like, island type play, like at the Dominican Republic, at the Corrales Punta Cana, or at Puerto Rico, or down in Mexico, or anywhere down in like South America, where you're going to see a lot of Paspalum. So a lot of these guys have experience on it, and some of them do not.
Yeah, it's an interesting deal because while you won't get the run out, like, the lies are just so amazing off of Paspalum. I think these dudes are going, you know, like, we're going to see iron play just like look so crazy good. And then it'll also help out the bad putters as well, because when you mow it down really, really low, we happen to have a course out here in Vegas that recently put in Paspalum from tee to green out there, and being able to play it and look at it up close. I mean, it's just, it takes a lot of the guesswork out on the greens. And so I think we're kind of team no putt this week. I think it's probably just going to be dudes that can get up there, and then I think a lot of these guys are going to be able to roll it pretty well. Kelley, as you were evaluating the course, was there anything that you kind of looked at and thought that it was worth noting?
Yeah, I mean, yes, mainly team no putt. We don't get Paspalum a lot of places, so I think it's tough to go look at who's really great putters on those type of surfaces. But, you know, we're talking big greens, so I think that it's always important. You're looking for, you know, whether it's bogey avoidance, 3-putt avoidance, those type of stuff I think do come into play. A little bit more approach putting stats, stuff like that. You know, bunkers, something to be aware of. There are 55. Some guys are going to have to play out of the sand a fair amount. You know, all these guys talk about the, you know, kind of the regular, trade winds, is that what we're calling them here off the Pacific Ocean? And I kind of looked at what the weather was going to look like. Doesn't look like it's going to be all that bad, but those, you know, kind of crosswinds are pretty regular. I know Rahm had some quotes about that a couple years ago, just of how much tougher it plays kind of in the afternoon with dealing with some of those winds. So something to be aware of, at least. But, yeah, I mean, course is long, right? I mean, this we're talking longest group of par 4s and par 5s on the PGA Tour. Got to be long off the tee. A lot to be good with long approach shots. And that was mainly a lot of what I looked at this week, longer proximity ranges for the approach shots and good distance off the tee.
Yeah, you and me both, my friend. I have a super heavily weighted model towards driving distance, total driving, approach from long distance, birdie or better percentage, par 5 scoring, and that's opportunities gained, and that is like about it for me. So the model didn't go really crazy this week for me, just a ton of scoring stats, I guess a little bogey avoidance as well, because if you're going to be, if the winner is going to be 19, 20, 21 under, something like that, you can't be like giving any strokes back or whatever. But outside of that, it was super heavy distance, super heavy just driving stuff in general, super heavy scoring stuff, and then, you know, we're always putting in approach things and into there. So, Wes, is there anything else that you threw into yours that maybe people at home that are building theirs might want to throw in?
Same with me, you know, general approach. By the way, Knapp was number 1 on approach in the field here last year on his way to his first his maiden victory. Proximity of 200 plus. You could go 175 as well and include that as well to get kind of the majority. But the plurality around low 40 percentage is going to be about 200 and out. So these are long irons. driving distance, carry distance as well. Carry distance, of course, is the distance from the tee to the point of the ground impact. Does not include the rollout because you're not going to get as much rollout here. So carry distance might be a little bit more important than it is in some weeks. It's a relatively new stat in terms of golf betting. I also did some birdie or better as well. It's not a pushover course, and birdies aren't gimmies. And even these par fives where it's like, okay, that's a birdie hole if you look at the scorecard. 2 of them are over 600 yards. So, one's 637. So it's not necessarily a gimme 4 on these. So that's why you don't see the scoring really, with the exception of Finau's year in 2023, where it's 24 under. And that was because the wind didn't blow. Winds, by the way, where you could get a draw bias is maybe more towards the afternoon. In the morning, and that's like that pretty much anywhere. There's a big difference, I think, in the afternoon than in the morning. Now, I looked at early forecasts. It didn't seem like it was going to be all that bad, like you were getting them 15 or 20 mile an hour gusts that you can sometimes get in these type of events. But afternoon usually is a little harder than the morning groups for those first 2 rounds.
Yeah, interesting kind of just the way that I handle these tournaments just differently from other tournaments. As you guys, if you listened last week, I had a very small outright card, right? Then this week comes around, and in these ones where I think there really isn't kind of a class of the field. I mean, when Akshay is your obvious class of the field, and not to say, I mean, Akshay's great.
It is obvious, though, right? Like, I mean, Akshay's been awesome.
Yeah, like when there's really only like one dude that you look at and you're kind of like, okay, like he's awesome, and everybody else is just like a good PGA Tour golfer, like I spray the board a little bit more, like because I think that really and truly we could see some craziness or whatever. Akshay, your betting favorite here in this one, as Kelley has it pulled up on the screen if you're watching over on the YouTube channel, which you should because it's absolutely free. 14-ish, 15-ish to 1, something like that for him. We get to kind of the teens on Rasmus Højgaard. You get into like the low 20s with Sam Stevens, who you guys know I've bet several times already this year, but at much, much longer odds. I don't think like 27 Patrick Rogers at 20, Kitayama is in there 22 as well. So, Wes, these are guys we're usually seeing 50, 60 next to their names, and like it's 20s because of the field and whatnot. So, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody with a 50, 60, 70 next to their name at least puts himself very much in contention come Sunday. Yeah,
I think these are guys that you have to let beat you in this thing. Like if Patrick Rogers maybe wasn't in the final pairing out there at Torrey Pines for the Genesis last week, might we have gotten like high 30s or 40s, and then maybe I would have taken a poke at him because he's finished top 10 in each of the 3 years here, and he's been long overdue to get a win. I think this is like 280-some starts now for Patrick Rogers, yet to get that first PGA Tour win. But, Michael Kim, who I think hits really good approach shots. I love he's great on Twitter. He's one of the more candid players out there, so give him a follow. But it's like, do I want to bet him at 25 or 28 to 1? It's like, there's just not enough meat on the bone for me on a course that I think is going to be open where you're going to get a lot of bombers do very well. So this is the week, I think, to spray the board a little bit in the mid-range to long shot range and see if you can get one home.
I guess I should say, if Rasmus didn't shit the bed last week, he'd probably be the favorite in this event. Don't you guys think?
Could be.
Kind of co-favorite, probably.
Yeah. Because he's proven on the DP, but
he's played well this year, but not a good week last week.
Yeah, I probably co-favorite, something like that. But, yeah, I mean, so for me, I know I never really start whenever we start talking about what made the card, but I'll kick things off, and then I'll give it to you guys and swing back around because, like I said, I kind of sprayed the board this week a little bit more. So I'll give you the 3 kind of like, in air quote, realistic guys that I bet, and then just kind of gets longer from there.
I love when you give out unrealistic winners.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's guys that rated really high in my model, but I mean, hell, the betting market tells me they're not supposed to win because they're like super long odds, right? I mean, like, so it kind of is what it is. But the 3 that are in, so like I started the card at 35. I have Kevin Yu, Alex Smalley, and Nikolai Højgaard. Those are the 3 for me. They all 3 ranked inside the top 10 in just about every version of every model that I threw in there. Kelley's highlighting them at DraftKings. I think they're all 335 there on DraftKings.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
40 on Nikolai.
So, like, look, they're 35s, 40s for me. It's just kind of one of those deals where as I'm putting the stuff together here, Wes, it's just I have obviously heavily emphasis off the tee and driving distance, birdie or better. These are guys that score. These are guys that are pretty good on approach. Typically, they just aren't good enough to beat the best guys out there. But in a field like this, I think that maybe some of their deficiencies might get depressed a little bit. A couple of these guys are certainly team no putt. So hopefully that evens out a little bit as well for them in this tournament. So again, those are the guys in the middle of the range there for me. That kind of where I started my card.
Yeah, maybe we have at least 2/3 of a couple pod plays. We'll see what Kelley brings out here in mere moments. But two of the guys you mentioned are who I started my card with. Alex Smalley, 40-1, 6 on debut here 3 years ago. I saw him referred to in some places in the space as the Prince of Paspalum, because he has the most strokes gained, with a second, by the way, and a sixth at the Corrales Punta Cana. So he's been pretty good in these type of events. 21st or better in 3 or 4 events this year. 2 weeks ago, he was actually in the final group on Saturday in Phoenix, then kind of, fell apart in that group. And maybe it had something to do with the atmosphere and being, in that pressure situation. But right up there in driving distance in the 2024 season. Very good on approach. I think 10th in this field is where I found him, and I just did average per round for strokes gained approach. Birdie or better, top 15 in this field, 25% of the time. I think the leader on tour, at least in this field, is 29.63, so not too far off that. So Smalley certainly made sense. And then I went with the other Dane, the other Højgaard, Nikolai Højgaard. Played here twice before, made the cut both times. Was runner-up, actually, on this Paspalum at the Corrales Punta Cana. Also won at Ras Al Khaimah over there in the Emirates on the DP World Tour, which is a similar surface here. Runner-up at the Farmers to Pavone, not this past year, but the previous year. Game off the tee fits. 7th on approach in Phoenix. So, the Højgaard's like, it kind of switches. It's like, okay, Nikolai's the better guy, right? And then it's all of a sudden Rasmus is the better of the two. And Rasmus is getting priced like the better of the two, 18-1. So I took the other twin, Nikolai, at 50-1.
I mean, the Alex Smalley, just to let everybody, he was the first bet that I put in this week. He is third. So the way I did it is like, okay, on courses, and I've explained this before, but for guys that are just finding the podcast, right? Like on courses that are easy and resort courses and all of that, like I tend to favor a little less recent form and just kind of like, okay, look, even if you're playing badly, easy courses for really good golfers can change things, right? And so like, even though I did a 24 round, I also did a 50, and then I also did a 75 round. And Alex Smalley was inside the top 5 in every single one of them. So like in recent and then mid and then in long term as well. So whenever that lines up, and then that was also, I should add, on 2 different algorithms. That's over on Rick's site and on the BetSpurt site where this came through. So like the algos love him, all the stats I put in love him, and short term, middle term, and long term all love him as well. So Smalley was literally the very first bet I put in the account this week.
Get that phone app ready, Matt, because Alex Smalley making a pod play, folks.
There we go.
Pod play, baby.
I did just learn a lot from you two, though. I didn't know I was betting the Prince of Paspalum, so that's comforting. I didn't know that, Wes. I knew about the tournament history here, but I didn't know we had the Prince of Paspalum. And then, I didn't go that far back, Matt. I just go way more off a recent form. You're talking a guy that just this season. Boom, there we go.
There it is.
Eventually, I'll just have to build that in here. I don't know why I haven't done that yet, but
it's great. It doesn't matter.
T21 at Phoenix, right? 11th the Amex, T16 at the Sony. I mean, you're talking 3 tournaments already where he's finished T21 or better this season. I feel like Wes and I have thrown a lot of money away with this guy over the past couple of years, but. I think like you guys talked about, he lines up perfectly for what we're looking for this week. Great on approach, great off the tee. Even I'm pulling numbers from last 16 rounds. How about that, man? 14th bogey avoidance. Really in the top 20 in both of those proximity buckets that you talked about, Wes. So, the one that was kind of funny where I had to stop and look at it for a minute was he came up over the last 16 rounds. It comes up 88th in distance. And I was like, wait, what? But then you realize, you start looking at these numbers, and it was like, okay, well, like if he hits one 9 yards further, he's in the top 12, because like that's how bunched together some of these guys are at the top now. So yeah, it's Alex Smalley was one of my outrights, and yeah, 40-1 on him. That's in my
and the point you bring up, Kelly. That's why in the column up at VSiN.com every week, I only include the guys that are in the field. So I'm not like when I'm given like the rankings for distance or approach, I'm not going to include like Rory or Scotty because they're not in the field. So those are all guys, by the way, that are in the field. I don't necessarily give their overall ranking, but yeah, like I looked at Smalley, he was probably in the 40 range in distance, but in this field, last year, because I'm including some of last year's data because we don't have enough yet for this year. But I looked at distance, he's 15th in the field, 307.5. So the number one in the field, by the way, from last year was Chris Goddard up at 316.2. So there really isn't that much of a difference when you look at it.
Yeah, I was giggling. I don't think it was this week, might have been last week or something, but one of the guys was like 309.1 off the tee, and it was like 79th on tour this year. It's like you're 309. Like you're 309, it's like you're friggin' 309 off the tee on average, and you're like 79th on tour. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like what is going on here? Well, so those are my kind of shorter guys, and Wes, you join me on two of those. Do you have any other guys in that price range ish?
The nearest I will have. Yeah, I've got a couple middle guys, 40 and 50 were my prices on Smalley and Nikolai respectively, and then I kind of went couple middles and then went big game hunting.
Kelly, let's get to you before we get to some of these middling.
I'll just roll through my card because we already
Yeah.
brought up most of the guys anyways. Okay, Alex Smalley, I guess that is the longest shot I technically played, 40-1, but I think he's my second favorite play this week. Number one, you hit him already, Matt. Kevin Yu, I'm trying to ride the hot hand in here.
Right.
T17 at Genesis, T16 the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Before that, okay, let's not look too far out before that. It was pretty gross, 64th at Pebble, missed cut early in the season. But man, he's gained on approach in every single tournament this year. Around the green play is really what's killed him, but it's not really something we're worried about this week.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be hitting these greens. You got to be making putts if you're going to go win this thing anyways. And just kind of over the last 16 rounds, I mean, you're talking 18th off the tee, 9th on approach, 14th birdie. Your bettors gained first in 175 to 200, 5th in 200 to 225, 5th in approach putting. I loved it. He was the first bet that I made. 35-1 in the outright market. I also played a top 20 on him at plus 160. So I'm all over Kevin Yu, along with you, Matt Brown. Also, my one and done pick for that. How about for this week? How about that? Kevin Yu, one and done. Who would have thought? I got to bounce back after Rory McIlroy last week. That was a good tournament to burn that one on. Yeah.
Well, he was doing fine until he wasn't. Right? It's just like that's like the thing with Rory. It's like he's doing great until he's not, and then it's like, all right, perfect.
Yeah, one more outright for me. Wes, I might have seen this guy in your article. I feel a little gross. The last two names I'm going to bring up, I feel a little gross playing because I feel like I'm giving them their 17th chance on my betting lifetime. Taylor Moore, I'm going with. The third off the tee, 54th on approach. That's not as great for this. 4th in par 5, scoring 9th in bogey avoidance, 8th in driving distance. Like he's a little weaker in those longer proximity buckets that we were looking at, but some quality finishes this year. T9 at Phoenix, T22 at Pebbles, T7 at the Amex. Only concern is you start looking at what he's done recently, and it's like he's red in last 3 tournaments on approach, which is not ideal, especially at this tournament. But his type of game should fit here well. So he's the shortest number I have, 26-1. Honestly, I bet bigger though on Kevin Yu and Alex Smalley at 35 and 40. So that's my entire outright card. There's Taylor Moore, Kevin Yu, and Alex Smalley. Top 20 on Kevin Yu, and then one other name. I already hate saying it, but Wes, I think me and you have battled around with this guy at the beginning of the year. I'm going to go back to Kurt Kitayama one last time for a top 20. I'm not playing the outright, but this guy who's played well here at this course, the long-term numbers for what his ball striking's like off the tee and on approach, he's one of the better guys in the field, period, for what we've seen do over the course of his career. So I'm not going to play an outright with him, but I'm just going to go with the top 20 at plus 110, Kurt Kitayama.
For what it's worth, he was number one in every single version of every model of everything. Doesn't matter what length of time, all of that. So, like, for what it's worth on Kitayama, he was number one in every single model I ran.
Especially if you're team no putt, because Kurt Kitayama oftentimes is team no putt. But man, he can hit the ball a long way and just really hits the golf ball beautifully. Played here in Las Vegas at UNLV, so look, certainly makes sense. And was the runner-up. I believe it was to Rahm.
Yeah.
I want to say a couple years ago. So he could certainly play here, no question about it.
All right, Wes, let's get on to the rest of your card here.
Okay, we already have Smalley and Nikolai Højgaard, and I was debating which Swede I wanted to go with, because maybe we're going to continue this Swedish run on the PGA Tour with Ludvig Åberg starting it off last week at the Genesis. Considered Vincent Norrman, who I hit on a couple years ago at the Barbasol.
No way you're about to say the name because I landed on this guy, and I'm like, well, there's no way you're about to say that.
I think I am about to say this name because it's not Vincent Norrman. It's not Tim Whiting either. I don't know if he's going to be on your card,
Henrik Norlander.
It's not Henrik Norlander either. It is
so I just guessed all the Swedish.
It is Jesper Svensson.
I got Jesper Svensson. How in the hell did we end up on freaking Svensson together?
Well,
Holy
he was a teammate actually. He and Ludvig were teammates 2018 at the European Amateur Team Championship, which Sweden won. So probably he's motivated. Norman probably is motivated too, considering him and Ludvig were roommates. So that could happen. But I ended up on Svensson, who I had an in-play that I hit on the DP World Tour last year. He won the Singapore Classic, held off Kiradech Afrik Barnrat in the playoff in what seemed like the longest freaking playoff. They kept playing that damn par 5 over and over and over again. So that's a pet peeve. That's just an aside note. But won at Singapore on Paspalum, was also the runner-up last year in Bahrain, also on Paspalum. So that really, those two results kind of got him in that top 10 and got him his PGA Tour card this season from the DP World Tour. Hits it really big off the tee. 10th at Hawaii, top 10. Actually, he's T9 at the Sony Open. So Jesper Svensson, 66-1. Think he can go very well here. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Wes, he's 4th overall in a couple of the models that I ran, and I'll tell you this, he would probably be higher, but he's 89th in the field in bogey avoidance. So, like, quite literally, he could have ended up being maybe top 2 in this in the model for me if he was maybe just, either if I had weighed bogey avoidance less or, whatever, didn't put it in or whatever it was. But, like, he was 4th overall. I had to dig in and figure out why I loved him so much. And then you can see as Kelley pulls up stuff. Look, he just gains off the tee, left and right. His approach game's been good here over the last few tournaments and stuff. Who cares? This is team no putt, so who cares that he's red in the putting? We're not worried about the around the green stuff. And I'm like, so as I did the research, I was like, all right, well, thank you, model, for putting me onto this dude, because I would have never have gotten there. But after some further evaluation, yes, for Jesper, whatever the hell it is, Svensson, also on my card as well, Wes.
Yes, trying to be, I think, the first Jesper since Jesper Parnevik won, of course, many years ago. So Svensson, 66-1. And then one of my favorite names, and maybe he's going to become a really good player. He's certainly young and got a lot of talent. We saw it a little bit on display at the Farmers when he was kind of in those final groups. He ended up finishing 15th, but he led the field, I believe, for off the tee and driving distance, and is second and first in those categories, respectively. The South African Aldrich Potgieter at 70-1, who was the British Amateur. It's the Amateur Championship, British Amateur. 2 years ago, he won at the ripe age of 17. Won last season on the Corn Ferry Tour at the Bahamas Championship. So another, I think, Paspalum event. And then ended 2024 really strongly. He was second in South Africa at the Nedbank Challenge, 8th in the Australian PGA, already a solid finish at the Farmers. Maybe your first time in the mix, you don't fare well and you kind of fall off the beaten path. So not surprising, but this guy, you talk about, I haven't looked at Bryson's standings on the two live events, but number one on driving distance I'm seeing in the professional golf world, at least on the PGA Tour, is one Aldrich Potgieter. 328.7 is the average, and I believe for carry distance, he's 309.5. And this guy just hits it a ton, and I noticed him in the Farmers and watching that event 3 weeks ago, and this guy just absolutely knocks the crap out of it. So Aldrich Potgieter at 70-1. One that I haven't had luck with, even though he always pops in these kind of like alternate events, even though this isn't an alternate event, it's a full event down there in Mexico. But 8th here last year, T6 at the Corrales Punta Cana, good record on the Paspalum, is Chan Kim, who, oh, by the way, if you look at Chan Kim, you're like, man, this guy never wins. He never wins on the PGA Tour, but he's won 10 times as a touring professional. He won eight times in Japan and twice on the Korn Ferry in 2023. Fourth in this field for approach so far this season. Eighth for the proximity from 200 plus. So Chan Kim 80-1 maybe doesn't fit the bomber, but he certainly hits the iron. So I kind of cover all my bases there. And then the three bombs will start at 90-1. Chris Ventura, who I think that this is going to be an important event to him. Chris Ventura, by the way, former teammate of Victor Hovland at Oklahoma State. Born to a Norwegian father and a Mexican mother, was raised actually in Mexico until the age of 12 before he moved to Norway, and then eventually came back to the States for Oklahoma State, trying to get that first win, but this is a really important one for emotion. Ventura, by the way, you might remember him. He was on the PGA Tour back in 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021. Never couldn't stick. Went back to the Korn Ferry. Now he's back on the PGA Tour. He's T4 at the Farmers. He was under par both weekend rounds, and what I thought played as a pretty tough course and relatively tough conditions, where Harris English eventually got it done. But Chris Ventura 90-1, and then a couple.
I'll go ahead and just go ahead. I don't know how the hell this is happening. So I have Chris Ventura as well. So
yeah, he popped for me too.
So we're there as well, together on Ventura too. It's just, again, same deal, right? Like once you start getting into this range, it's like, yeah, you're going to go in. It doesn't look great. Like there's a ton of cuts, but there's also like, if you go back a little bit further, Wes, like you're saying, I mean, like there's T7s and T6s, and there's like, you mentioned the T4 at Farmers, and I'm fine with a guy once we get this long that's like, hey, go get cut. I don't care. Or like if you're playing in your 90th percentile, then you might be live for me. Like, whenever it comes around. So yeah. So Ventura also made the card for me. Really, really, really popped for me.
COVID just killed his career, man. That's what it looks like. COVID just sent him off course. Look how baller this is, though.
This guy had a pedigree.
That's baller right there.
Yeah, look, this guy had a big pedigree coming out of Oklahoma State. Probably as good of a pedigree as Victor Hovland, to be honest, even though Hovland ended up winning the U.S. Amateur. But he was right up there. So Chris Ventura, I looked at him this week. I think he's 11th for carry distance and 11th for driving distance. So, doesn't hurt to load up with bombers, and that's what I kind of did at the back end here. Ventura 90-1, and then another guy who played very well at the Farmers ended up T21, but he was on the first page of the leaderboard, I think, going in the final round. Ricky Castillo at 110-1. Did you end up on Ricky Castillo as well?
This is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Yes, so. We obviously weighted the same stuff in the models this week because Ricky Castillo as well. Like, we have the same friggin' card. Like, I don't even need to talk after you get done. Like, it's just like whatever you can.
Ventura was up there for me. These other guys, I don't know what the hell we were looking at. Yeah,
well,
you guys were looking at different stuff than I was. That's for sure.
Well, the driving distance, he was top 10 in the field, by the way, at the Farmers for both total driving and ball striking. He actually won. He's a former Florida Gator. Won on the Korn Ferry Tour at the event in Wichita. I forget the name of the event. That was his first event on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he won on debut last summer. He's also, if you look at some of the events that the Korn Ferry Tour, and they play some of these, overseas events and some of these events in south of the border. He's 5th in Panama, 7th at the Estera Championship, 13th in Argentina, 5th in Chile, all in South America. So there is some correlating form here. So he's experienced on these surfaces. So Ricky Castillo at 110-1. And I'll fall out of the chair here if we land on this one, but we very well might. Ricky Castillo was enough of a surprise, but how about a guy that actually had to qualify to get in this event, and he had to do so on February 10th, the open qualifier that they had. I think it was at a course in Texas. Hayden Springer at 120-1. 38th here last year, but he finished 3rd in his following start in Puerto Rico, also on the Paspalum. 6th at the Farmers last month. Really big game off the tee. So that's just kind of one of those. This is one of those places where you play those like narrative angles. It's like, oh man, the guy had to qualify just to get into this event. He's only only made, I think, 2 starts this year. He's like a lot of the guys in the field where it's like, you got to take the opportunity when you can, and that's why you're here. When the big guns are taking the week off and playing the triple header like they did at the TGL yesterday, this is where you got to play, and this is where you got to show up and show out, and I think Hayden Springer can do it 120-1.
You guys
So
are crazy.
Wes, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't guess you were looking at the at your screen because you were probably reading off of your statistics. But while you were talking, I did that to show, yes, Hayden Springer also on the sheet right there. So I only have one other guy to talk about. At least you didn't go with Alejandro Tosti, because if you'd have said that,
him.
Because if you'd have said that, I'd have
considered
been like, what in the
Tosti.
holy hell is going on here with the tournament? So that's the only other guy on my card is Alejandro Tosti. I don't even need to talk about any of the other, because Wes already explained everybody else on my betting card this week. But yeah, Tosti was another guy. He was, like I said, I took this pretty deep out for a few of the models that I ran. And like, again, he's not like beating up the top of the model, but he's like in that 20-ish, 22-ish range. And then when you get like a little bit closer, like, in the 24 round, he's up at 11th, And so this is one of those deals, again, where if you go in and you dig down to like, okay, why is he popping so much? Well, over the last 24 rounds, he is number 1 in this field in long iron play. Like 200 plus, he's literally number 1 in this field. So you're like, okay, well, that makes sense as to why Tosti is up there. Oh, why else is he up there? Well, he averages 320.7 yards off the tee. So obviously if I make a big play for driving distance, he's going to be up there as well. Oh, what about gaining off the tee? And second in strokes gained off the tee in this field. And if you do weighted strokes gained off the tee, he's second as well in this field. He would probably be even higher, but like a lot of these guys that we're talking about, which is the reason why they never win and they never like bogey avoidance, he's 100th in this.
Yeah.
He's 100th in this field in bogey avoidance, right? So it's like, so long as I can get him to avoid shanking it every now and then, or ended up like in greenside bunkers or any of the stuff, like, or maybe don't hit it in the water, he is like literally right there in every one of these categories that I love. Even 19th in opportunities gained, so he's giving himself a chance to make birdies as well.
There's a lot of similar profiles here with guys like Tosti, Trey Mullinax, another one, Rico Hoey, Matty Schmid. A lot of these guys that are just big hitters, and I think, this is the time to load them up because these are some of the widest fairways. And, Tosti
very
can
incestuous edition of long shots this week.
Yeah.
We're just all up in everyone's business this week with everything. To let everybody know, the reason this reaction is happening, and this is not me faking it for you that are watching us on YouTube, all we did was ask beforehand, how many do you have, so that we can let you know at the top, hey, stick around. We're going to give you 17, 18 outrights here for you to put in your account. But we don't ask who they are because we want, the discussions to be natural and we want all that. That is why you got the reaction you did. And that is also why I put the piece of paper up to the screen to show everybody like what I have written down on this deal, that it was not just like all the, a bunch of nonsense here. Like all of those guys that we end up on, all written down here on my screen. So just absolutely crazy that we end up on that. But again, I think this goes to show, though, in a tournament like this, where we are looking for dudes that might have a chance. By the way, you guys might remember, if you are a longtime listener of Long Shots, we were live last year with one of these triple digits on Sammy Valimaki.
I remember that.
It was a guy that popped in my model. I was like, hey, listen, I dug in. He checked some of the boxes for this. I can't tell you a ton about him, but so that's kind of what these plays are as well, right? It's like they popped in the model. I went in and dug in. They checked the boxes we're looking for. We need him to run pure. Now, Valimaki didn't get it home, obviously, but hey, when you've got a dude that's 125-1 who on Sunday you can monetize that ticket. And so, Wes, all these guys we talked about, Castillo, Ventura, Springer, Tole, they're all 90, 100, 110, in the markets out there. So as long as they can put themselves in contention come Sunday, we can monetize these tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's kind of what I was thinking about when I was, finishing this up earlier today. It's like, hey, if I can get a couple guys just in the mix on Sunday, which is always a goal. You want to win and you have a clear winner like you guys ended up with last week on Ludwig. But you want to get a couple guys in position because there are some opportunities to play back the other side and to play out of it a little bit, hedge a little off. They say hedging is for gardeners. It's also for winning bettors as well, especially if you're betting golf outright. And yeah, I think that's what you want to do. And it's like, if you get one or two of these bombs, because I don't want to feel like, okay, I have to bet Akshay or somebody. Could Akshay win? Sure. But it's like, at this event, I'm willing to let a favorite beat me. So that's why I think that you got to go a little mid-range and bomb hunting this week. And I think this is the week to do it.
Yeah, I'm adding Toasty. I refuse to not be a part of Alejandro Toasty when he wins for the first time. The other thing you didn't bring up, though, Matt, is like, he's like the Nick Kyrgios of the PGA Tour. So
he is a hothead. Yes,
he might throw a club in the water and just storm off at some point too. Yeah. Like I think that's probably. What did he get suspended by like the Latin American tour or something like that?
He got into some kind of deal. I think there was some kind of little kerfuffle. I want to say it was with Tony Finau. It was at the Houston Open where we got there with Stefan Jaeger, who also I've seen kind of be pretty popular this week. Another really big hitter off the tour. So I'm trying to actually find that because him and Finau, I think we're having some kind of like words, and Tony Finau seems like the nicest freaking guy, or at least one of them on the PGA Tour. So that surprised me. I was like, gee, okay. He garnered one time media attention.
He was suspended by the Corn Ferry Tour. Yeah, suspended by the Corn Ferry Tour.
He accepted a shuttle ride, thinking it was a courtesy car from the 18th green to the first tee mid-round at the Suncoast Classic on the Corn Ferry Tour, and he got a 2-shot penalty for that, for breaking that. The players cannot use transportation during a round. Also had a disciplinary matter at the Boise Open, I think, last year. I'm just looking this up. He, by the way, did win on the Corn Ferry Tour back in August of 2023, so he has one. But, yeah, this guy's a piece of work, man. This guy... Yeah. He gets a fiery temper. He is originally from Argentina, played his college golf at Florida.
He's the guy, like he is perfect. He is your quintessential team no putt guy, right? I mean, he is. You just look down, lost 2.8, lost 2.6, lost 4.6, lost 1.5, lost 2.05, lost 2.7, lost 1.6. I mean, like he is your team no putt guy. So if we're at least putting a few team no putt guys into our accounts this week, well, he fits the bill, that's for sure. Dude cannot putt it at all.
I got that Boise story pulled up. Wes, like, this is so great. After playing partner Kyle Westmoreland hit his tee shot into the trees and took some time to find it, Toasty exploded, according to multiple fans and volunteers, launching into an expletive-filled outburst over the length of time Westmoreland was taking.
I love it.
Don't pair him with Jordan Spieth, then.
Yeah,
I want to see the next time they get paired in an event.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm not missing when this guy wins, man. There might be some trash talk involved. It is going to involve some pearl clutching by the golf old heads out there.
Well, hopefully he doesn't end up in the Hooskow like the last great Argentinian player, Angel Cabrera, El Pato, the Duck, the 2-time Masters champion that I believe is now done with his incarceration.
Now, for your DFS players out there, Joe Highsmith showed up highly in some of the models. Rico Hoey showed up highly in some of the models for me. I mentioned Sam Stevens. I just can't bet him at this short of a number, but he showed up very, very well in some of the models out there for me as well. Matty Schmid showed up inside the top 15 multiple different times, and then the Charlie Hoffman, inside the top 15 on multiple versions of the model. So other guys, if you're just kind of looking to round out your DFS teams out there.
Yep, I like it. Sorry, I'm stuck on Toasty stories now. Yeah. I just caught the West golf cart one here, right? That forced him to his suspension. That's just awesome.
This guy was rated top 100 in the world, by the way. I think at the end of the year. in the world golf rankings. I'm not sure. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but he was top 100 in the world to end 2024.
I mean, the part to keep in mind, too, with golf, like anything golf disciplinary reasons, like discipline stuff, like we never see it. We assume that there's some wrist slapping and stuff that goes on with some of these stories and rumors we've heard over the years. For the PGA Tour to actually come out and hand down penalties against a player like this multiple times, like you
put
I
that
can
stuff
only
on full
imagine.
swing. Put that on full swing.
Exactly.
Not that with your family and all that crap.
Exactly.
I don't
Which,
care
by the
about
way,
that.
Does debut next week, the next season of Full Swing. So get that
Almost
on your.
done with the first one.
Get your. Are you serious? Dude, get on it, bro. Let's go.
I got to start the second one, actually.
Guys,
because
come
I
on,
forgot.
next week. We got to be able to talk about this on the pod.
I'll
We
have
have
a book
listeners
report
who
for
want
the
our
class.
opinions on these things. Like, we got to have this, so let's go ahead and get that in the queue, guys. Come on, let's fire some stuff off here so we can talk about this with our listeners here. Also, if you are listening, we do appreciate you guys being here with us. If you want to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, we do appreciate it. If you want to rate and review, even better, unless you're going to give anything lower than a 4-star, and then you can just go on about your evening. That's perfectly fine. We're not worried about that. And if you're finding us over on YouTube, hello, appreciate that. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well on this channel. You're not only get just golf stuff, but every single sport out there, so do appreciate the support there as well. If you want Wes's full write-up at VSiN.com over there, so be sure and take that in. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber for as low as $9.99 right now, as we are running a special here on that. So, guys, we again kind of a different outlook on how to play this type of tournament. Again, notice I had no placement market bets and no head-to-heads. I probably won't, given the nature of all of this, unless I see a head-to-head that I think is just grossly mispriced or something. Not my style for these type of tournaments, but I'll spray the board a little bit to see what we can get home. Maybe one of these long shots come home on Sunday for us. For Wes, for Kelley, I'm Matt. Good luck on all your Mexico Open bets.
Yeah!
Hey! Toasty!
Good luck, y'all.